Hey everybody, and Tony here with a review of Tchaikovsky's The Nutcracker, live from the Bolshoi Theater in Moscow on December 21, 2014, which I saw at the Cinestar movie theaters at Potsdamer Platz. The choreographer was Yuri Grigorovich, the conductor was Pavel Klinichev, the sets and costumes were done by Simon Vitsoradze, and the host was Katya Novikova. Now before I get on to the actual production, I'd also like to talk about the host of the evening, Katya Novikova. Overall, I find her hosting capabilities to be quite decent. She not only spoke her native Russian, but also French, English, and a little bit of German. It also helped that she also spoke French and English, mostly due to the fact that this live stream was released by the French film company Pathé, mostly for French-speaking audiences. And the fact that she was able to bounce off between French and English when she was explaining the plot, or certain details, and even giving off interviews, it also shows just how versatile she is as a host. And when she also interviewed one of the dancers, who was Denis Rodkin, who performed the role of the Nutcracker Prince, she not only spoke to him in Russian, but she also translated of what he had to say, thus showing a great amount of versatility she has as a host. Yes, sometimes the interview segments and the hosting segments did feel kind of long, but I still have to give it credit because it still manages to have some interesting tidbits about this particular ballet thrown in the mix. For example, did you know that The Nutcracker was also written at the same time where Tchaikovsky also wrote Yolanta and Symphony No. 6? And in terms of this particular production, did you know that the toys, whether it be the Spanish chocolate, Arabian coffee, French mirlitons, or the Chinese tea and Russian trepak, were mainly danced as couples to reflect who the Nutcracker Prince and Marie are as the main couple? It was really quite interesting. So overall, I did find some of the hosting segments to be a little bit too long for my tastes, but I still have to give Madame Novikova loads of credit for being quite confident in front of the camera and for explaining certain details and certain amounts of trivia that I have never known about before. Going into this particular production, I also stated in my comparison video where I compared the American Ballet Theater's production of the Nutcracker to that of the Kirov Ballet's version and the Bolshoi Theater's version, and each of these versions had their merits. For example, the American Ballet Theater's version had some really fine dancing from Mikhail Baryshnikov and Gelsey Kirkland, and in terms of the Kirov Ballet version, we had the absolute standout being Larisa Lezhnina as Masha, and in terms of the Bolshoi Theater version, we had Ekaterina Maximova, who embodied the role of Marie or Masha or Clara. And I stated in that comparison video, and for those of you who'd also like to check it out, you can also check it out on the link provided in the description box below, that I found the Bolshoi Theater version of the Nutcracker to be my absolute favorite because it was quite creative in terms of its execution, and I really loved the sets and costumes. Those said feelings also hold true today, especially when I saw this particular version. The sets and costumes were absolutely wonderful from both acts, whether it be the night sky and the snow falling to the ground, to the party scene, to the dream scene where Marie dreams that she is in a situation caught between her in a battle between the mice and the soldiers, with the Nutcracker Prince leading the soldiers, and Drosselmeyer also plays a big part in terms of Marie's dream. And instead of the puppet show that we'd usually get from the party scene, we get Drosselmeyer showing different tricks before introducing the children to the different dolls, the Harlequin doll, the Columbine doll, and the two little devil dolls, which I found really fun. And what's also interesting is that the dancers for the Kingdom of Sweets, the Spanish chocolate, Arabian coffee, Chinese tea, Russian trepak, and French mirlitons appear as Marie's toys coming to life and helping not only the Nutcracker Prince, but also the toy soldiers fend themselves against the Mouse King and his legion of mice, which I found very, very interesting to really show that the denizens of the Kingdom of Sweets also proved themselves to be allies to Marie and her Nutcracker Prince, thus transitioning the entire action in such a smooth manner. And like I said before, the dances of the Kingdom of Sweets are done in pairs to reflect Marie's and the Nutcracker Prince's status as the main couple. And it is just, simply put, really gorgeous, especially when you enter the Kingdom of Sweets scene. You get this wintry and icy feel that you get when going outside on a very snowy day, and it's quite pleasant to look at. So I'm not going to mince words here. I really love the production all throughout. And speaking of our Nutcracker Prince, when he is in his doll form, it's not like the typical doll form where Marie holds the doll on her hands and dances along with it, but it is an automaton, or a moving doll, which he manages to not only move with certain gestures, but also dance around. And Fritz doesn't end up breaking the Nutcracker doll, but he ends up overworking the poor thing until it manages to do a split, and it takes the magic of Herr Drosselmeyer to repair this automaton to life. So what more can I say about the Bolshoi Theater production of the Nutcracker? I still love it to this very day, mostly due to its creativity and its great sets and costumes. And now we get to the dancers, starting off with Anna Nikulina as Marie. And she managed to exude a great amount of charm, likability, and she was just so adorable on stage. She was just an absolute darling as Marie. She was really charming because, as to be expected, Marie is supposed to be like 12, 13, 14 years old, well, mainly in her early teens, and she managed to invoke that youthfulness with such aplomb and such beauty and such grace that I was completely involved in her performance. It also helped that she was also a student of Ekaterina Maximova, thus making her performance as Marie quite professional in terms of how she was able to move around the stage. And she was just so precise in all of her movements, and especially all of her mannerisms, that I was completely involved in her performance. She was really gorgeous and lovely on stage, that she was just great in her own special way. Her Nutcracker Prince was played by Denis Rodkin, who was really exuberant on stage, and he was quite charming as the Nutcracker Prince. He had a very dashing bearing, and he was really graceful on stage, and he moved like a gust of wind. He was flying all over the stage. You could definitely feel that presence that he has, whether he was doing his leaps, which felt like he was flying all across the stage, or whether he was just dancing with Anna Nikulina as Marie, and their chemistry was so palpable. When they do their pas de deux, you could definitely feel that magic pouring out of these two professionals, and they were just absolute pros on stage. Their chemistry was palpable, and they were absolutely great all throughout. There was not one moment where either of them ended up slipping up. They were so focused, so into their characters, and they danced like angels. They were quite godlike when they were all across the stage, which left me gobsmacked from beginning to end. They were charming and they were just lovely in terms of their chemistry. Andrei Merkuriev was a spry and agile Herr Drosselmeyer. He was just so thrilling on stage, and he was just wonderful in this part. And he was just exuberant, spry, and he was vivacious on stage. He really knew how to make this enigmatic figure come to life, and he knew how to add in elements of Puck from A Midsummer Night's Dream to this particular character. He not only made him the loving and caring godfather to Marie, but he also made him quite mischievous, a little bit devious, but just a lot of fun to witness on stage. You could definitely tell that he was an absolute standout in this particular role. He stood head to toe with Anna Nikulina and Denis Rodkin as the leads, and they were really the stars of the evening. Vitaly Viktimirov was a fabulous Mouse King, as he was able to be quite devious in this role, but really, really spry. And the corps de ballet from the Bolshoi theater was just so wonderful all throughout. Whether it be the children, the parents, the different toys, the assistant mice, or even the Waltz of the Flowers, everyone did amazingly, especially the dancer who also did the role of Fritz. I thought she was just really charming, and I always love it when this role is an entravesti role. So overall, all of the dancers really exceeded themselves in terms of what they were truly capable of. But the absolute standouts for me were Anna Nikulina as Marie, Denis Rodkin as the Nutcracker Prince, and Andrei Merkuriev as Herr Drosselmeyer. These guys were absolute pros, and they were just awesome all throughout. And the conducting done by Maestro Pavel Klinichev was wonderful, wonderfully brisk, and really vivacious all throughout. Yes, there were some moments where at times the pacing was a little bit too fast for my tastes, but he still manages to bring everyone together, from the orchestra to the dancers to everyone else involved, in a way that everyone just gave it their all. So overall, this particular production of the Nutcracker was exceptional all throughout. And for those of you who have seen this production of the Nutcracker, what did you guys think of it? Did you love it? Did you not care for it too much? Did you feel kind of meh about it? Was there a dancer that stood out to you the most? Comment below and let me know. Well, that's all for now. Be sure to tune in tomorrow for my review of Humperdinck's Hänsel und Gretel at the Deutsche Oper Berlin. So until then, good night everybody and happy holidays!